In a court filing this week, the January 6th committee made it crystal clear that they believe Donald Trump broke the law. That's it, done, end of story. They believe there's 3 different instances where they can prove that Donald Trump and, of course, his attorney John Eastman broke the law. This is kind of the big breakthrough that we've all been waiting for, right? For the January 6th committee to come out and say whether or not Trump was committing criminal activities. And here it is, huge, huge news. So the reason, before I get into the specific laws they say he broke, the reason this was even filed in court and the reason we know about it is because they want more information from John Eastman, Donald Trump's attorney. Now, Eastman had provided plenty of documents over to the committee, but based on these documents, they say they need more. Now, Eastman was able to previously withhold some information by claiming attorney-client privilege. So that is what this court filing was about, asking the court, you have to waive attorney-client privilege here because we have evidence of crimes. So what are they? The committee suggests Trump and some of his allies may have committed 3 distinct crimes. Obstruction of an official proceeding, in this case Congress's January 6th session to count electoral votes, defrauding the United States by interfering in the election certification and spreading false information about the results, and a violation of the District of Columbia's Common Fraud Law. Now, according to Politico, to prove Trump committed felony obstruction, investigators would have to show he corruptly intended to impede an official proceeding, and the committee says his work with Eastman to pressure Pence to take illegal acts could justify this requirement, particularly as Trump continued to spread claims of fraud that his own allies said were unfounded. So basically what they're saying here is that Trump knew the election wasn't stolen and that there was no fraud, but he continued to try to sell it to the public, to the government itself, Mike Pence, and that was the fraud he committed against the government. So, in order to do that, they do have to prove, as this says, that Trump knew there was no fraud and knew he legitimately lost the election. That shouldn't be too hard based on all of the other conversations that they've had with individuals. And according to reports, by the way, they have interviewed now 650 different individuals. So if none of those 650 individuals have any proof that they showed or told Donald Trump he lost the election, then they probably have nothing. But I'm willing to bet at least one out of those 650 people did in fact tell the president, showed him, you lost. And I say that with confidence because the committee has already said people did say that. So if they needed their evidence, they likely have it. We'll see if it holds up in court. They continue, though. Even after the Capitol riot, but before the certification of the votes, Eastman made one final plea to convince Pence to stop the counting of electoral votes, acknowledging it would amount to a, quote, relatively minor violation of the federal law known as the Electoral Count Act. So, according to the Capitol Riot Committee, Eastman told Pence, listen, yes, this is illegal. It's a, little bit illegal, but we need you to do this anyway. I would consider that a smoking gun in my book. So what happens now, right? Everybody's sitting on pins and needles wondering where we go from here. Well, the answer is nowhere yet. Patience is a virtue, and unfortunately it's a virtue we all have to have a little more of right now because this committee cannot issue criminal indictments. All they can do is issue recommendations to the United States Department of Justice once they finish their work, which again, the work is supposed to conclude early summer, probably so they can have time off to go campaign, which I still feel is a little rushed, but it will be up to the DOJ and Merrick Garland at that point. So pressure, pressure, pressure. Because Garland is likely going to get criminal referrals for Donald Trump. Whether or not he turns those into indictments will be entirely up to the DOJ and the pressure that we, from this point forward, put on them. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you saw, don't forget to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to our Ring of Fire channel here.